Welcome back to my channel. In the previous video I posted the other day, I was going through the four-level interpretive framework that exists within Judaism to examine texts in the Old Testament. And I gave you the example of, first of all, in that video, I explained what this interpretive framework is. If you have not seen it, please check the bio for a link to that video, because this will make more sense if you see the first video. So I gave you an example of how I applied the Pardes framework to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In this video, I'm going to show you another example in the Old Testament, but I'm also going to show you an example in the New Testament. So let's just first do the Old Testament here. We're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. And this is a very popular, very famous prayer or declaration in Judaism, and it's in all the prayer books. It's in the mezuzah and the tefillin and everything. And it is, Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, which means, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And this is a very popular declaration. Now, if we look at this from the first level, the Peshat, the verse is a declaration of monotheism, essentially, right? It instructs Israel to recognize there's one God, and He is their God. The repetition of Adonai emphasizes, His uniqueness and His relationship with the people of Israel. And the Hebrew word echad just means one. So it asserts God's unity and rejects any idea of multiple competing deities. That was the whole point in this verse originally. So this is really an affirmative declaration of, or sort of Israel binding itself to God, saying, listen, this is our God, the Lord is one. No, that's the very superficial explanation. If we go to Remez, the second level, we see that the word Shema, or hear, suggests more than just an auditory perception, right? It implies understanding and internalizing and acting on the truth. Okay, because he's not just saying, oh, by the way, open your ears, hear this. No. It's allegorical for something deeper to truly understand. And the term echad, which is one, hints at the unity underlying all existence. So meaning God is not only the creator of everything, but also the unifying force behind all diversity in the world. So this meaning arises from understanding echad, or one, as the bridge between the seen and the unseen. He unifies the material and the spiritual. Now, if we look at the Derash, or the third level of interpretation, which is often the rabbinic tradition, the rabbinic tradition often interprets this verse as a call to action, not just a belief. The Shema is a directive to align all aspects of one's life, your words, your deeds, your thoughts, with God's oneness. And there was a very famous rabbi, he's in the Talmud, his name is Rabbi Akiva. He interpreted dying with the words of the Shema, this saying, on your lips, as the ultimate affirmation of his unity. And the fact that in this prayer God is mentioned several times, Adonai Eloheinu and also Adonai Echad, reflects the balance between the personal and communal aspects of faith, because he says the first one, Adonai Eloheinu, is our God, and Adonai Echad is one God. You see, so it's the universal one, but also the communal Eloheinu. You see, so that's the third level. Now the mystical level is interesting because mystically the Shema Israel is actually a meditation on the unification of divine realms. In Kabbalistic thought, Adonai represents the Sphira of Malchut, the kingdom, the 10th Sphira, the final emanation that governs the physical world, while Eloheinu connects us to the higher Sphirot, like understanding and beauty, And so the unification of these names in the phrase Adonai Echad symbolizes the integration of all divine attributes into infinity. So this verse is a cosmic declaration. All creation, including the multiplicity and duality, emanates from and returns to the singular divine source that is Echad in that passage. So you see what I mean? So mystically speaking, reciting the Shema aligns your soul with this cosmic truth, at least as it appears in Judaism. Right? So do you see how you can take every word even in a certain passage and run it through this 4-level interpretation? You get a much deeper read, right? I mean, and supposedly every single verse can be done too, but I think it presupposes a little bit of knowledge, right? Like the terms in Hebrew, right? If you don't know Hebrew, it's hard to use this because a lot of the interpretations are sort of a play on words or the repetition of words, and it's not so obvious in English, okay? So that's why it's sometimes hard to explain to people when I'm using it, like, because they'll ask me very specific questions, and I'm like, okay, it's really difficult to explain it in a way that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because there's an element of sort of knowing something already in order to see the connection and knowing the language that's present. Because if you didn't know what Eloheinu meant and all of that, or Echad, or even knew about it or understood it in the Hebrew, it just wouldn't make sense. I mean, in this case, maybe we could still apply the Pardes in the English, but as you can see, it sort of presupposes there are certain aspects of ways of thinking that are already you're predisposed to doing. Because on the surface, why would anyone think that people should even consider Adonai to be this part of the last emanation of the tree? You know what I mean? So they're presupposing that you already know what that tree is. And that is something also that I've had difficulty with in general, and that's why in all my work that deals with Jewish texts, I try to make it as accessible as possible, because I know that most people may not have that background. And I think it's a disservice when books are written assuming that the reader knows what they're talking about. I think it's, I don't know, there's something arrogant about it. I don't know how to put it. But in my work, I assume anyone who interacts with my work will see that you don't really need to have a background in anything to understand what's to come. You know what I mean? So I try to do that. I try to bring that to the occult space as best as I can, because it is difficult when it's another language, and it's a little difficult sometimes to port the ideas over. All right, so I know this was a longer video. I mean, the last one was pretty long too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this up again. In the next video, I'm going to apply the Pardes to a passage in the New Testament. This way you could see how I apply it there too. Like I said, some people might take offense to that because there's, but that's a Jewish thing, you know. But yes, it originated in a Jewish framework, but those 4 levels are generic. They can apply to anything: the literal sense, allegorical sense, the metaphorical sense, mystical sense. No one owns that. Okay, it's just this particular framework called Pardes. You know, yeah, it came from a Jewish tradition, but the levels are open for everyone. You know, so I that's why I sometimes stay away from, you know, people who are like, oh, you shouldn't be teaching this and this and that. And I say, look, everyone should be allowed to learn this. Everyone should be allowed at least access in some way to Kabbalah or something like that. I don't like it when groups hoard or gatekeep this knowledge. Yes, some of it might require you to know some background, but that's what I'm here for. That's what some of other teachers are here for too, to try to bring it down to earth and assume and be able to show you this knowledge without you having, to convert to Judaism or to Christianity or Islam, you know what I mean? But to have this access to this information, even if you're not part of that fold. And that, to me, is a very important thing, because to me, knowledge should be shared. So anyway, that's the end of this video. In the next one, I will apply the Pardes on a New Testament passage. See you then.